Live from the backstretch at historic Saratoga Racecourse, this is Saturdays at the Spa with Brian Nadeau. Saturdays at the Spa is brought to you by CapitalOTBBet.com, New York's premier wagering site. CapitalOTBBet.com. Sign up today. The new Capital mobile app. Wager anywhere, anytime. Download it free from the iTunes Store or Google Play. And the Nell's Restaurant, a Saratoga tradition since 1922. 284 Jefferson Street, just minutes from the track.
Good morning and welcome to Saturdays at the Spa. Brian Nadeau with you on a sunny day Saturday at Saratoga after we lost turf racing, a sloppy and sealed main track yesterday. The rain, summer in Saratoga, it is what it is, but I think we're in the clear today. We're off the turf for a couple of races, but we do have turf racing scheduled, and that's going to, it's one of the reasons I have one of our first guests on, Jimmy Toner, is going to join me in a second here with Manitoulin in the Bowling Green today. Grade 2 later on in the card, on a stakes-laden card here at Saratoga. Mike Luzzy's going to stop in a little bit. The PDJF, Jockeys Karaoke, coming around Monday night. One of the best things they do for the riders, the Permanently Disabled Jockeys Fund. Gets lots of donations. A really fun night right in town here at Vapor. We're going to talk to Mike a little bit about that. And then a little later on, David Aragona, who draws the morning line at NYRA, as well as DRF, Daily Racing Form Analyst, is going to drop by. We're going to do a little handicapping, late pick 4. David's got some opinions. We're going to pull up some videos as well to talk about that sequence. A really good day here at Saratoga, one of these power Saturday cards. It's kind of the Travers prep card, and I'll bring in my first guest here, Jimmy Toner. Jimmy, thanks for stopping by, and not Travers, but you will be prepping hopefully today with Manitoulin in the Bowling Green, as that's the prep for the Sword Dancer later on in the Travers card.
Yeah, well, hopefully that's the way it goes. We get a good run today, and then it all sets up good, then we can come back in the Sword Dancer.
Yeah, and Manitoulin, I know he's got to be a horse pretty close to your heart because you trained his dam, Soaring Softly, the inaugural winner of the Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare Turf down at Gulfstream Park. I was there that day as a fan, and the one-day Breeders' Cup, if the newcomers aren't really too aware of that, back when it was all one day. We're going to pull up footage of her winning at Gulfstream. Had to be a pretty cool feeling because you've had a long and storied history with the Phillips and fillies and mares as well. Soaring Softly in the record books as the first Breeders' Cup filly and mare turf winner.
Well, it's exciting because at the time we had Memories of Silver running, and at the time, you know, there were no, this was the first, the Breeders' Cup filly and mare Breeders' Cup race. So at the time we were trying to push to get a filly and mare turf race in, because at that time you ran in New York, the Flower Bowl, and then you'd have to go to California to compete in those races out there in order to try to get a championship done. So when they did have the Breeders' Cup filly and mare turf, where we were very excited and fortunate enough to be able to win the first one with Soaring Softly.
And cemented a championship for
yes,
her
correct.
as
That's
well
right.
in 1999. And Memories of Silver, if memory serves, you ran her in the Breeders' Cup Mile, I believe.
That's
as
right,
a
we did.
right?
Yes,
Yeah.
she ran against, in fact, the horse won the race that day, and then that was one of Jerry Bailey's toughest days, I think. It's Cigar ran that day, and he had an outside trip, and I had an out. It was just one of those days.
Yeah.
But Philly ran well. I mean, she came off a record-breaking performance in the Queen Elizabeth.
Yeah, Keeneland, sure.
At Keeneland, so, but we wanted to take a shot with her, and we did. And but like I said, had there been a filly and mare turf,
Right.
that's what we'd have been running in that.
And so we'll fast forward some 19 years. So obviously Soaring Softly as a broodmare is getting up in age, but now she delivers Manitoulin. I know you've had some good turf horses over the years. Blazing Fury comes to mind, but predominantly most of your better turf horses have been the fillies. Memories of Silver, Wonder Again.
Right.
Obviously Soaring Softly, Winter Memories comes to mind. Manitoulin, any similarities to Mom in that he is a hard grinding, hard knocking, long distance kind of turf horse?
Yeah, I think he's the only one that really is pretty much like his mother. I think the rest of them a little fragile, delicate, but he's tough. He's big and tough. She was a big and tough mare to deal with, and He had his issues to begin with trying to train. He's very difficult to train to begin with, and I think we performed the ultimate, equipment change, and I think that's helped him tremendously.
I was going to ask you that. I mean, you ran him on dirt a few times to start his career. It took 6 starts to break his maiden. Was the gelding really what helped the light bulb go on?
Yeah,
I saw John
basically,
Phillips say he was a tough horse to deal with.
He was, and I think the whole thing is we started out on the dirt because you have a colt with his kind of breeding. You always try to think. Everybody thinks Derby.
Right.
So that's our initial thought with him. But then we realized that we had to switch over to the grass, and we did. But we still didn't get his full potential until we, gelded him.
Yeah, and we're going to bring up video here, which I think up to this point at least was his crowning moment. He wins the race at Del Mar. Mike Smith aboard, 1.5 miles. That's probably these long distance turf races his best trip. Kind of grinding him out on the lead here. He's on the outside with the white blinkers. Very game performance, huh? Breakthrough run, I would think.
Well, it was a great race for him. It's the best race he ever run at that time. But it was like I never expected him to be on the lead because he has to have a target and something to run at. But Mike knew what he was doing, so he put him there because they were going so slow.
Right.
And he didn't want to restrain him. He just let him gallop along. And but when he seen the horse coming, he dug back in again and continued on.
So you bring him back in the Fort Marcy, 1.8 miles, obviously pretty short for him. First start of the year, too. We fast forward. We're going to bring up the footage here. We joked off the set, a really game effort in the Grade 1 Manhattan, wide every step of the way. We kind of joked he might have ran 1.5 miles that day. He's beaten, as you said, I think 3 necks, 3/4 of a length and all. We're going to show it off the far turn here, and he's kind of parked outside. Mike Smith really could never ideally get in. You see him here 4 wide, kind of on the hard chase almost here. 48-2 is pretty honest for 1.25 miles.
For 1.25 miles, they went pretty good early and finished up good. But he got floated wide going into the first turn, and he was never able to tuck back in and try to save some ground. So he was basically wide all the way. I think the trackers had him at 55 feet.
Right.
So, but geez, a good game race. He tried. At least he showed us, well, okay, we're back in the game again with him. We had the one race at the Fort Marcy to get a race into him, but he came back and he ran well here. So I was, very excited and tickled about his performance here, and he tried, and he's back to himself.
And we talked. This is obviously a progression for the big money in the Sword Dancer if everything goes according to plan. But he is a gelding, and obviously the breeding is out the window now. Does it cause you to maybe tighten the screws a little bit more, being that winning a Grade 1 race would be great, but it's in all sense it's not going to add a lot of residual value.
He's
to the
basically
horse.
you're trying to win races with him, and that's the bottom line.
Right.
Yeah, I mean this year we laid the schedule out this year. Hopefully we were able to continue on from here. But if it doesn't, then we drop back and find another place to go to. So, and that's what it is. It's to win races with him now.
Yeah, and as we talked again off the set, a tough race here. Sadler's Joy. We know how good he is. High Happy, I think, at least in these neck of the woods, probably the best turf force around here. We mentioned Money Multiplier for Chad is in there. It's a tough field. Highland Sky seems like he might be finally
he's coming back to
himself.
Right.
Yeah, I mean Channel Maker's 15-1 in here. It's that kind of race.
Well, it's the same horse that ran for $1 million.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly. So the trip. What I know you're outside again. You said you always seem to be outside. It's got to be frustrating. What kind of trip do you envision today? It seems like you look at him on paper, he's pretty versatile. You can kind of put him anywhere. At 1 mile and 3/8 today, how does he trip out?
Well, I'm hoping that Junior can get him out of there and drop over. It appears to me like there's speed and deep closers. So if we can put him somewhere in the middle and give him a shot from there, I think that would be the thing to do.
The other reason, I think this is a really cool story. The other reason I wanted to get you on today and talking a little bit, this is the first horse to wear those Darby Dan silks in quite some time. I know the thinking is they only put them on the colts or males. So obviously some of those females. No,
I think it was just a question of Squire Galbraith had originally. He was the one that was inherited the silks. And
those are the cousins of John Phillips?
Yes.
Okay.
And then he's pretty much went out of the business, so there was no opportunity to use them anymore. And John talked him into letting them use the silks on this, especially this particular horse. I think
and
that's what it was.
John Phillips, for those not in the know, is the grandson of John Galbraith.
Yes,
who
correct.
owned
Yeah.
Derby Dan Farm. And Derby Dan Farm, one of the storied farms in the history of the
Yes,
game. Bred a couple
right.
Derby winners, bred an Epsom Derby winner.
Yes.
As well. So I would think. From your standpoint, it has to be pretty cool to be able to run this horse, to win significant races with this horse, with those silks.
I think the last stake that they did win, I won for them many years ago, was a filly called Triumph at Dawn, who won the stake down at Laurel. And I think it was the last time they had a stakes in their colors.
Right.
So it's quite neat to be able to come back and have the horse running in their colors again.
And I'm sure they wanted to do it with a horse that had potential like this. You know,
right.
a son of a champion that you trained, and as I mentioned, you've had a long and storied history with John Phillips.
It's basically this Derby Dan. I mean, John
Phillips
Racing Partnership, but that's where they all came from, is Derby Dan Farm.
Jimmy, I want to thank you for stopping by. We do have a gift certificate for you, $100 at Jacob and Anthony's right in town.
Oh, very good.
Check it out. Very, very close. Great food, good beverages as well. And I want to wish you the best of luck with Manitoulin today and going forward as well.
Thank you very
Jimmy,
much.
I appreciate you stopping by. Best of luck. It's going to bring us to our first break on Saturdays at the Spa. When we come back, we've got Mike Luzzi on hand. We're going to talk a little PDJF, the Jockeys Karaoke, going on Monday night across the street a little bit at Vapor. Stay tuned.
Saratoga's back, and so are Capital OTB's special Saratoga bankrolls. Now's your chance to team up with one of Capital OTB's handicappers and win big at Saratoga. 50 players will be randomly chosen from online entries, and new account holders can double their chances with our Bet 100 Get 100 promotion. So don't miss your chance to win big at Saratoga. For details and to be part of one of the bankroll teams, visit CapitalOTB.com. In a recent study of some of the top online wagering sites, Capital OTB won big in total player rewards, far surpassing some of the best-known wagering sites in America. While other rewards programs simply offer you points redeemable for gift cards, Capital OTB's rebates are paid to you in actual cash. Plus, Capital OTB gives you full and immediate access to your money. So if all you're getting now are points and gift cards, join Capital OTB Player Rewards today and get cash back. Visit CapitalOTBBet.com and sign up today.
For 4 generations, Bruce Cerrone and his family have continued the 96-year tradition of delighting their local following and faithful summer crowd with the finest authentic Italian recipes. Classic Italian dishes made with the freshest ingredients and served in a home-like setting where everyone is welcome. Some things have changed in the last 96 years, but not Pinnell's commitment to the finest in Italian cuisine. Pinnell's Italian Restaurant, a Saratoga tradition since 1922. 284 Jefferson Street, just minutes from the track.
Welcome back to Saturdays at the Spa. Brian Nadeau with you. I want to give a special thanks to Jimmy Toner for stopping by Manitoulin today in the Grade 2 Bowling Green, a little later on the turf. But now I want to bring in my second guest, Mike Luzzi. Stop by. We've got the PDJF tomorrow, Monday night, over at Vapor, Jockeys Karaoke. Mike, as a seasoned jockey, you've been around a while. The PDJF's probably got to be pretty close to your heart.
It's a great event. It's become a really big event.
Yeah, it has, sure.
And it's for a good cause, of course. And everybody participates, and it's a lot of fun. But it's for a good cause, and it's been very successful. And this year is even better because California decided to try it.
Out at Del Mar, right?
Yeah,
for the
it's
first
like
time,
a 2-day event. I'm not too clear on the details, but I think they got a little jealous and wanted to jump in and see what they got.
They might have saw you singing.
I think so. I think it was because of me.
We're going to show that in a second, so careful what you wish for. If you're not familiar with the PDJF, it was founded in 2006, and it gives financial assistance to jockeys who've suffered catastrophic injuries on the track. And I know as a guy that's ridden for a long time, you've gone through injuries. throughout your career, and you've missed significant time. So, like I said, it's got to be pretty close to your heart that you can help these jockeys out if that does occur.
Absolutely. I've been fortunate enough to make it back through some serious injuries, and no one thought I would the last time. And it was, even the doctor says, we could rule you permanently disabled, but
right.
I wanted to get back to riding, and now I feel better than ever. So. Some guys aren't so fortunate. We know about Ramon. Oh gosh!
Can we give a little color commentary right here?
As long as there's no volume. I like there's no volume. I look better than I sing.
You mentioned Ramon. He's probably, at the top of that list, at least most recently.
Right.
Multiple Eclipse Award winner, and
right.
and went down, and
sure.
and that's where something like this comes into play.
Absolutely. Around the same time, Jose Espinosa had a similar injury as Ramon, and it's brain injuries are like other sports have become more of a focus.
Yeah.
And we're trying to get a protocol here for head injuries.
Right.
And hopefully someday it'll be in place.
Well, and just to put it bluntly, if you're not riding, you're not working, and that's got to be tough.
Yeah, if you don't ride them, somebody will.
Yeah, and that's the other thing too.
Yeah.
You lose a lot of mounts when you're, out of sight, out of mind kind of thing.
And I've been fortunate enough. I've won 3,400 races, and I probably miss when you put all my injuries together. I probably missed 4 or 5 years of riding. So, when you look at the stats,
sure.
I rode so many years, but I missed maybe 4.
Right. And what could be that many more. So it's Monday night, 5:30 to 11 at Vapor. $75 gets you in. There's $150 VIP packages as well. It's become a big thing, and the basketball that you guys play as well. My partner Seth Merrow, he actually scored last year, so I can't bust his chops too much more on that. But just a great. Everybody comes out to these things too. It's not just. I don't think it's just racetrack people. Like I said, you can get in the door. A lot of people support this other than just the jockeys.
It's great. I mean, you see, local Saratoga people love horse racing everywhere, but especially here in Saratoga, it's really neat. And, I walk downtown and people recognize you. And, it doesn't always work in Manhattan.
Right.
But in Saratoga, you get recognized. It's nice.
Yeah, and that's the other thing too. It allows, especially for the public, to be up close and personal with guys like you that they see, just on a distance on horseback. And I'm sure a lot of people really like that aspect of it too. Seeing you guys up there sing, being, for a good cause, for your cause though too, to kind of see it play out.
And it's fun. Yeah. And people poke fun at us. None of us are really good singers.
Right.
But we try, and it's fun, and we like to get poked at.
Yeah.
It's typical racetrack poking, making fun of, but it's for a good cause.
And you can see the passion in there too. I mean, you guys do, you take it seriously because you're looking for donations and things like that. And I know it's a big success. You see the YMCA there, and you're up there singing all summer long. And I know Johnny and Javier speak very highly of it as well. So best of luck to that on Monday. But before we let you go, I mean, we talked off the air. You've got a couple tomorrow. I think you're live with. You've got a horse. You said business is a little slow up here.
It's a tough meet.
Yeah.
And there's the competition gets thicker up here. And I'm getting a little older, and a lot of my clients are retired. Mr. Hushin and some other names have even passed away.
Yeah.
So it's a little tough for me, but I'll keep fighting.
Yeah. JoJo's Candy, I think, definitely in with an upset shot. A lot of speed. Looked good winning first asking for Bruce Levine.
Yeah, and that's one of my clients that's still doing it. Bruce Levine and Flying P Stable. They've been helpful to me. Got a good chance. We tried to rate last time, and that didn't work out too good, so we're going to go back to the speed thing.
All right, and then in the nightcap, I would think anytime you can get aboard one for Diodoro, that's a good thing?
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of the way it happened. I actually went to Oakland for a little while this year, and breezed some horses for him, and he promised to put me on the horse, so I hope he put me on a good one.
There goes Jose in the nightcap. Before I let you go, your son's riding now, too.
Yeah.
That's got to be pretty cool. He's down at Retama right now. I see he's got 41 wins on the year, humming along 12%. in the kind of same jock room, different, with your son. It's got to be a pretty proud moment.
It's
for
pretty
Dad,
neat,
right?
and I'm proud. He's actually here in Saratoga right now, and he's probably listening. And he's got a real cool agent who came to see Saratoga for the first time, Bradley White, and I'm so proud of him.
Yeah.
He still is my son. I still have to reprimand him sometimes, but he's riding really well. And Retama Park's like a in-between meet where they go from Lone Star back to Remington.
Right.
So watch him at Remington.
Is he trying to? Is that where he's trying to build his niche a little bit, or what?
I mean, that's where he found his niche. He skipped around a little bit early in his career.
Right.
He almost won the Eclipse Award. He did get hurt and he lost 6 weeks. He would have won it if he didn't. But he did a little of the East Coast thing, and he did this on his own. He wanted to try the Midwest, and we have a home here in Saratoga. Actually, we sold at Floral Park by Belmont, so
you're
we're
here?
permanently here.
Not a bad place to be.
No, it's great. We love it. We've had the house here for a number of years. But Lane's home, and I've seen his eyes. He wants to be here maybe someday.
I was going to say, it's got to be every jockey's dream to ride at Saratoga.
Absolutely. And New York, to me, when I was in Maryland as a young kid and I won the Eclipse Award, New York was a destination.
Right.
It wasn't a stopover.
Right.
And
That's the ultimate goal.
I try to teach them it's a goal. Some kids got lucky to be an apprentice here and then be able to stay here. Right. I thought, like old school, be an apprentice and a journeyman and be a champion somewhere else and then come to New York.
Right. Well, listen, Les, I want to wish you the best of luck. PDJF.org, too. You can go on there if you can't make it to Vapor on Monday night for the Jockeys Karaoke. You can donate on there. Check it out. The website's got a lot of good information. Again, the Permanently Disabled Jockeys Fund, a great event at Vapor Karaoke. You can see this guy get up there and sing, a lot of other jockeys. We see YouTube it too if you want, and there's some really cool footage. I'd be damned if you watch on YouTube and don't want to go over there and check it out. So Mike Lussey, he'll be over there. Thank you, Les. Best of luck for the rest of the meet. Best of luck tomorrow. Best of luck Monday night too. Appreciate it.
Thank you, man.
All right. That is going to bring us to our second break today on Saturdays at the Spa. When we come back, we're a little mixed up on the schedule. Jimmy Toner got here early for us, and we appreciate that. Mike as well. We're going to do a little news and notes, and then a little later on, we'll have David Aragona, DRF analyst, racing analyst, NYRA Morning Line Maker as well. Stay tuned.
Looking for a fantastic meal? Stop by Malcolm's, a unique farm-to-table restaurant experience. Located at 617 Union Street in Schenectady, Malcolm's offers locally grown fresh foods, mouth-watering flavors, an enhanced drink menu, and terrific service. Malcolm's is a sure bet during Saratoga season. Make your reservation today.
Pick, bet, and cheer on live racing from Woodbine and Mohawk Park. Thoroughbred and harness action. The wagers are just the beginning. Watch award-winning broadcasts covering both breeds, incredible battles contested over the most unique grass course in North America. Experience the full fields with over 130 thoroughbred and 160 live harness days. Get access to free handicapping material and join the ranks of Woodbine and Mohawk Park players from all over the globe. For more information, visit woodbine.com.
Come on.
I want sales reports on my desk by Monday.
Oops. My bad.
Love racing? RTN brings you every live simulcast on your home television, plus live video streaming and race replays on your PC and mobile devices. To order, visit rtn.tv. RTN, a breed apart.
Visit Rivers Casino and Resort, the Capital Region's only destination for live table game action and the hottest new slots paying out millions. And they're off. Horse betting is now at Rivers Casino and Resort with Capital off-track betting terminals and live tellers located just off the gaming floor at Van Slyck's. Get in on all the action at Rivers Casino and Resort.
Welcome back to Saturdays at the Spa. Brian Nadeau with you on what's turning out to be, I think, pretty nice day here in Saratoga. We yesterday decimated by rains, typical kind of summer shower here. We blew the races off the turf. As I look outside, though, I think we're in a good spot. I know we're off the turf in a couple of races today if you're thinking about handicapping. And I mention it because I'm going to have David Aragona on in a few minutes here. DRF racing analyst, as well as the NYRA morning line maker. So he's going to talk a little late pick 4 with us. We've got some videos to pull up, horses he's looking at today. But we're off the turf in races 2 and 3, and the rest of the day, I think the turf is listed as good. So that's good. We got a big stakes card here, too, at Saratoga with 4 stakes. It's kind of Travers prep day. You know, we run the Jim Dandy as the feature today for the 3-year-olds prepping for the Travers. We got the Grade 1 Vanderbilt, which turned out to be a really nice race between Switzerland and Imperial Hint. I think Wayne Lucas is in there with Warriors Club, excuse me, as well as the Amsterdam, which gets us to the Alan Jerkins, the old King's Bishop. So there's really a lot of things going on. And then, of course, the Bowling Green. We had Jimmy Toner on earlier, and I want to thank him. He's got Manitoulin in there as a live, I think, price player after a wide trip, and Manitoulin. It's a cool story too, as well, with the down the line from those Darby Dan silks that he's wearing, and Jimmy with a long partnership with John Phillips, who's the grandson of John Galbraith, the founder of Darby Dan Farm. So it was cool to get him on and talk a little bit about not only that lineage, but Manitoulin as well. And Jimmy trained his dam Soaring Softly to a championship back in 1999. She was the first ever Breeders' Cup filly and mare turf winner. You know, that was not an original race in the Breeders' Cup series. So they introduced it in 99 back at Gulfstream Park, the one-day Breeders' Cup too. I would think I am probably not alone in saying that maybe I long for the days of a one-day Breeders' Cup. But a little news and notes. Like I said, normally we get to that at the start, but Jimmy was nice enough to stop by early on, and so you know, the biggest news, of course, of the week, and I don't even know if this is necessarily news more than it's just the finalization of the retirement of our Triple Crown winner, undefeated Justify, has been officially retired. I don't think anybody was surprised at that. It seemed to be tilting that way. Frankly, I don't know if anybody would have been surprised at that after he crossed the finish line in the Belmont Stakes if they told us he was retired. This is an animal that's worth upwards of $75 million, and here he is wiring the field in the Belmont Stakes. We pick it up entering the far turn. They let him walk on the lead. Gronkowski there in the white making a pretty menacing run, and hopefully Chad Brown can get this guy going again. I know he's back on the work tab, and maybe he can make the Travers. I mean, for my money, he was best in this race. Completely blew the start. Nobody goes with Justify. He makes a big move, predictably kind of flattens out late. But back to Justify, just another kind of tour de force. And you know, I said this earlier in the week, I think with Anthony Mormino, my colleague, earlier in the week, when I believe we were on Thursday when the news was finalized. And I said, listen, you can say what you will about Justify, and you know, he never probably really got to prove just how good he is or could be, and what heights he really could get to. But all of that is, to me, secondary to the fact what he was able to accomplish in 112 days, I believe, to go from an unraced maiden, and don't forget, this is a horse, no horse had won the Kentucky Derby without running at 2 since 1882, Apollo, 1882. I mean, that's, to me, that's mind-boggling, and that, as a handicapper, that was the one kind of hurdle. I said, I need to see that done before I back a horse, whoever this horse was. And don't forget, Bodemeister couldn't do it. Curlin couldn't do it. I mean, this is Curlin, a Hall of Fame Curlin couldn't do it. So it was a giant hurdle that Justify just not only did he do it, he laughed at it. You know, his Derby was huge, dueling or pressing, you know, crazy 45 and change splits. And I've made the joke before. You know, Mike Smith gets all the credit in the world, and you know, if Justify had lost the Derby, you could make a case that he got a horrible ride, chasing crazy splits. But Justify just kept on going, and he gutted it out in the Preakness. And of course, we just saw the Belmont. nobody went with him. And when you don't go with a horse that's destined to win the Triple Crown, you're in for a long day at the office. So again, say what you will. I don't think it's a time or place to where we want to rank Justify in the annals of racing. And I think many people, might agree that he's not an all-time great. That to me is neither here nor there. That's a discussion for another day. I think what we should do is celebrate what he did in such a short period of time, and I have to think we'll never see anything like that again. I don't know. He retires as an undefeated Triple Crown winner, and he did it as an unraced maiden in February through a Belmont Stakes winner on June 9th, and I think that is going to be his lasting legacy. He didn't get to run at 4. He didn't get to face older horses, and I think that's when horses, 3-year-olds, can really prove their greatness. But again, to me, that's a little beside the point, because the enormity of his accomplishment, I don't think, whether you're a fan or not, I don't think it can be underestimated, because what he did in such a short period of time. And I know we're in a day and age where all these records are being broken and horses don't run much, and now Justify breaks through the barrier, and before it was 2 preps or 5 weeks and this kind of thing. So maybe it does. I find it hard to believe, unless Bob Baffert does it again. I don't know that we can see another horse do what he did in such a short period of time. So it's unfortunate we lost him far too early. But as I mentioned, I kind of think that's just where the game is in 2018. You're not going to get a lot of runs out of horses. Their starts are going to be more spaced out. They're more fragile animals to begin with. The days of running campaigns have long since passed us, and that's just kind of what we're going to have to deal with. And let's just be completely honest, you're worth far more off the racetrack than you are on, when you're going to cover upwards of 150 mares at $200,000 a cover. Just do the math. You're not going to make that kind of money. So Justify will begin his second career going forward, but boy, he sure left us with some lasting memories. It's a terrible segue, because I don't want to ever mention Hofburg in the same breath as Justify, but I have to give him credit. He did what he had to do yesterday. I sat right here hosting the bankroll, and I basically said Hofburg has to win the Curlin. He can't not win, and I'm not a big fan of Hofburg, but I think it's time to give him a little credit for not only doing what he was supposed to do, but he finally broke through. I think he finally delivered a performance. Now listen, he beat absolutely no one yesterday in the Curlin, but he did it the right way. We're going to pull up the video here in a second. He did it the right way, and I think it is worth noting, okay, he's now third, 3 wide here, but he was last early, and it is worth noting, yesterday no one made up an inch of ground. Everybody won on the lead. And again, he's 1-5. He was legitimately 1-5 in here. None of these horses are legitimate Travers horses, that kind of thing. And he wins for fun, but he did do it the right way. He did it against the grain of the racetrack, and I've got to give him a little credit. And I think I saw he ran preliminary 100 Beyer speed figure, and you know what? That's going to be a big number 4 weeks from today. Whether you believe in him or not, that's up for debate. But I've always said, if nothing else, I think they can point you in the right direction. And that's going to be a pretty big number 4 weeks from today, when he lines up in the Travers, which Bill Mott said was obviously the ultimate goal, and where he's going to send him. And I think Bill was an interesting quote. I don't have it exactly, but Bill said, I don't know if the horse needed some confidence, but the trainer did. And as we all know, Bill Mott is a very, very patient guy. Horses bring Bill Mott to races. Bill Mott doesn't bring horses to races. So the fact that he ran Hofburg in the Kentucky Derby off just 3 lifetime starts speaks volumes of his confidence in what the horse is and how he was doing. And he had a rough trip that day in the Derby, 7th, I believe. He comes back. It looked like he was looming in the Belmont. You saw him there just a little bit ago, and he kind of flattened out a little bit late. But I think going forward, Seth Merrill, my colleague, and I, we always talk about those lifetime maidens when they break through. And Hofburg is not a lifetime maiden. That's not my point. But he finally broke through yesterday. And a lot of times those lifetime maidens, they are known to come right back and pop and win again. Hofburg's going to face much, much tougher in the Travers. I hope for our sake as handicappers and as fans and as bettors, it's on a fast main track, which he did not get yesterday. And if you want to be hard-headed, you could say, you know what, he's still got to prove it to me on a fast main track. But, you know, he's going to have a lot of confidence off this drubbing yesterday, going to the Travers and, you know, meeting. Hey, I have said it since day one. I'm not sold on these 3-year-olds, and I know it's probably easier for me to say that now with the Malibu, you know, those kind of horses. Malibu Moon's out for the year and retired, and obviously Justify. What I said was, aside from Justify, I'm not sure really what we have. I mean, you know, Bolt Doro has done nothing but tank since I thought he was going to win the Kentucky Derby. Malibu Moon, you know, Todd has lost Malibu Moon. Others have fallen by the wayside. I am not sold on this group. And, you know, Hofberg, now that he's proven he can run fast, he's proven that he can win races, beat winners, and do it decisively. He's got a 2-turn win right outside our tent here on the Saratoga main track. Don't lose sight of that. That's a big deal, too. So I think Hofberg goes to the Travers now off this run as one of the ones. And it'll be interesting to see after the Jim Dandy today. We've got a 5-pack in the Jim Dandy. You know, I don't think there's any great shakes in the Jim Dandy. I think, quite frankly, Hofberg probably would have been favored in the Jim Dandy today. He's a horse people like to bet. I respect Vino Rosso for Todd and Mike Rapoli, and I expect Tenfold, who I picked for Steve Asmussen, and was a close third in the Preakness. But, you know, Hofberg would have been right there today. So kind of took the road less traveled. I think it's probably a pretty good idea, to be honest with you, because, again, it allowed him to beat an average field yesterday, do it the right way, and get a whole ton of confidence. So I think he goes to the Travers, as I mentioned, as one of the favorites. We'll see what happens tomorrow in the Haskell out at Monmouth. Chad Brown has got good magic coming back, and certainly second in the Derby, fourth in the Preakness after doing all the dirty work against against Justify. So good magic. I would think right now, today, before the Haskell, is probably your Travers favorite, but again, they got to run the race tomorrow, and we've got 4 weeks to go to that. So we'll see how it all shakes out. Hofberg, though, you know, good for him to get it done the right way, and if nothing else, I guess it's the first of the intrigue, and we'll get a lot more today and tomorrow as the Travers build. It's never too early to talk about Travers at Saratoga. I don't know if I like it or not, because we just wait for Saratoga, and then all of a sudden it's like we want to get to that penultimate weekend. But it is Travers prep day, so to speak, here at Saratoga. Again, as I mentioned, the Amsterdam for the 3-year-old sprinters, the Vanderbilt, the grade 1 for 6 furlongs. It gets us to the 4-go later in the meet as well. Of course, the Bowling Green for the prep for the Sword Dancer, and then obviously the Jim Dandy for the big one, the Travers. So it's going to bring us to our final break here on Saturdays at the Spa. We'll take it here. When we come back, David Aragona is going to join me. We're going to talk about a lot of those stakes races, the late pick 4 as well. DRF analyst, Naira Morning Line Maker. Stay tuned. We'll be back with David Aragona.
For 4 generations, Bruce Cerrone and his family have continued the 96-year tradition of delighting their local following and faithful summer crowd with the finest authentic Italian recipes. Classic Italian dishes made with the freshest ingredients and served in a home-like setting where everyone is welcome. Some things have changed in the last 96 years, but not Pinnell's commitment to the finest in Italian cuisine. Pinnell's Italian Restaurant, a Saratoga tradition since 1922. 284 Jefferson Street, just minutes from the track.
The backstretch workers are the heart and soul of what we do.
They're the backbone of the industry.
People on the racetrack are very giving people.
It's a very oppressive community of people helping one another. We see it all the time.
Any help we need, it's right there in their hands.
It makes so much easier in the family to have somebody like Nathan to help them.
If you like to play the Late Pick 5, here's some great news. Capital OTB is now accepting internet wagering on Naira's Late Pick 5 at Saratoga on all platforms and all digital devices. Simply log on to capitalotb.com, look for the icon, and there you go. If you're playing on one of your digital devices, just open your Capital OTB Bet icon, click on the menu button, and scroll down to find the Late Pick 5. Late Pick 5 wagering, now at Capital OTB.
Welcome back to Saturdays at the Spa. Brian Nadeau with you, and we had Jimmy Toner earlier talking about Manitoulin and Mike Luzzi and the PDJF. Don't forget that Monday night at Vapor. You can go pdjf.org as well. Jockeys Karaoke Monday night. It's a really cool event. But now I'm going to bring in David Aragona. And here we go. Here first, thank you, Brad, for putting that up. Monday night at Vapor, basically right over by the harness track. I'm going to bring in David Aragona now, DRF racing analyst, as well as NYRA morning line maker. David, thanks for joining me, and I know what can be a pretty busy summer in Saratoga.
Yeah, it's good to be here. I mean, it's busy, but it's fun work. Work I love. So, it's a great card today.
Yeah, it is a phenomenal card today. Before we get into it, I want to talk briefly about the morning line. Travis Stone's a pretty good friend of mine, and we text and chat quite a bit, and he did it for the past couple years, and it's a labor of love, I know that, but it's also kind of the type of thing where your name only gets mentioned if you get it wrong or if somebody has a problem with it. I know Travis is an ace tweeter out there, and he likes to stoke the fire a little bit, so he had fun with it. But I know it can be a pretty taxing job as well to try to get it right, to try to predict what the public is going to do.
Yeah, I mean, the best compliment I can get as a morning line maker is when nobody talks about it.
Exactly.
That just means, there's nothing that's really standing out as being odd. Some of these races, though, I mean, they're just so complex, and it's hard to find a favorite. I mean, that's the first thing I try to do when I enter one of these races with so many contenders, is just try to figure out who the public is really going to latch on to. Right. A lot of times Chad Brown and Todd Pletcher take a lot of money up here, so you really want to be aware of those horses and don't underestimate how much money they actually will take. But I mean, it's difficult to do. It's a lot harder than I even found it at Belmont, where some of the cards could be difficult as well.
Yeah, for sure. And as you alluded to, people just blindly bet Chad and Todd, even if because you're a handicapper as well, even if you kind of know, like, well, I don't like this horse. But I think the misnomer with the morning line is a lot of people, they like to criticize it. They don't necessarily know. Your job is not to predict races. It's to predict what the public is going to bet, and it's probably tricky because, as I mentioned, you do a lot of work. You're a DRF racing analyst as well. You do you're on TV with Andy and predicting races, but that's not necessarily your job with the morning line. You've got to separate it a little bit. Okay, I know Chad's going to get bet here, but I don't really like him. It's got to be a little tough.
No, it feels like I'm wearing two hats sometimes. Yeah. I've got to kind of put myself in the situation of trying to see the race from other people's eyes and how they're going to perceive these horses as contenders and who's going to take a lot of money, maybe not using my methodology, trying to view the races through other people's eyes. But then when I go to handicap the races, I try to still look for the value, and I think it's good to know who the public is going to bet when you're looking for that value. The only tricky part up here is kind of figure out how much to weight horses that might be like clever looking horses that had a trip, how much people are going to put credence into that, and because you do see a lot of horses taking money that are just wise guy horses around here.
And that's the other thing too, these 2-year-old races where you've got 10 first-time starters, you've got Chad, you've got Todd, you've got Asmussen. What's your thinking there? Are you looking at workouts, reports, anything like that? How are you coming up with a morning line on these 2-year-old races that can be absolutely inscrutable? I know today, just for example, the 5th, I know Coast is supposed to be pretty good for Todd, but you look at, Chad's got one in there that's working well. Danny Gargan's got one that ran a pretty big number at Belmont. How do you sift through these kind of races knowing there's going to be hot horses in there?
Yeah, the biggest thing in these 2-year-old races with a lot of first-time starters is just the connections. Obviously, Chad Brown takes a ton of money on the turf, as well as on the dirt. I mean, more so in recent years, we've seen his dirt first-time starters taking a lot of money as well, even into the face of Todd Pletcher. Todd Pletcher, always dangerous. It's been weird. Some of his 2-year-olds up here have not been quite as live as in the past. We haven't seen any of those really short prices on the first-time starters. Maybe Coast will be different today, because Coast is apparently working well. Aurelius Maximus, Chad Brown's horse, is apparently working very well too. I mean, it seems like those are the two that have some buzz around them, and there are other horses with pedigree in this race. I'm not going to be surprised if some of the others are live.
Yeah, now I want to get into, we're going to talk about the late pick 4 first, but I know you like a horse in the Amsterdam, which is not part of the late pick 4. It is part of the pick 5, and you can bet that now on CapitalOTBBet.com. The Amsterdam, the prep for the King's Bishop, which is now the Alan Jerkins. They go 6.5. It's a tricky 6.5. And you're trying to blow it up a little bit here with Barry Lee.
Yeah, I'm a little disappointed because I just saw the World of Trouble came out. He was scratched out of this race, so that takes a little bit of the speed out, and I think that does make the number 2 horse Promises Fulfilled a bit more dangerous than he originally was, because I thought Promises Fulfilled ran a monster race in the Woody Stevens. That pace was just extremely fast, and he looked like he was going to be, totally finished at the top of the stretch, and he was extremely game to battle back. I think he's dangerous. I'm a little bit against Engage, who I think is probably going to go favored in this race. I know he projects to sit the right trip, but he just did so last time in the Woody Stevens.
He still couldn't win.
Yeah, he's consistent. I'm taking a shot against both of those horses with Barry Lee. If you really dig through those Churchill Downs races, they were both against older horses, some pretty nice older horses in each of those races. Majestic Affair, who won that last race, came back and won with an equally fast speed figure. Just horses that seem about as talented as the ones he's facing here. He got trips in those races last time out. He kind of broke a little slowly, really had to rush up inside. With Joao Rosario on today, I think he's going to be able to just kind of slot in behind those horses' stalk. And I think this horse is a little bit better than he seems, and he's going to be a price in here.
Yeah, and as you mentioned Engage, he's probably going to be something to 5 in here, especially with the scratch. And you have to respect him, but you look through the body of this field, he's really no faster on whatever kind of figures you want to use. He's no faster than anyone else in here. And like you mentioned, you're probably 15 to 20 times the price. So yeah, I was very high on World of Trouble being outside. But now that he's scratched Promises Fulfilled, is eligible to get very brave in there.
Yeah, I think he's very dangerous with the scratch.
Yeah, for sure. All right, we're going to talk late pick 4 here. I know you had some horses you wanted to hit on, and so we're going to pull up some videos as well. It kicks off in the Vanderbilt, and if you're not privy, they've been sending it in. These pools have been absolutely huge up here. I would think they can plug away at $1 million here in this pick 4. It's 3 of them are going to be stakes races, and then what is... I know Chad will be favored in the nightcap, but he doesn't have to win it in a turf race where you could probably go 6 or 8 deep. How did you see the Vanderbilt? And I believe we're going to pull up the True North.
Yeah, so I mean, I think if there's one horse in this sequence that you can really lean on, it's Imperial Hint. I know this race might get bet like Switzerland is like way the other horse. In my opinion, Imperial Hint is just a championship quality sprinter. He's better than these horses. I was really impressed with this effort in the True North last time because 6.5 might be just a tad far for him. And Whitmore really ran in this race. He was making an effective late run, and it looked for a second like he was going to go by. And Imperial Hint is just this tiny little horse with so much heart, and he really battled back. If he runs his race today, I think he's just going to win.
Yeah, this is his day to get his grade 1, and he gets a huge benefit being outside of Switzerland
for
too.
Sure.
I mean, he can do the dictating too, pressing Switzerland, who's really, ironically, ever since he got away from Chad. He got to Steve down at Oakland. He's really turned into a new horse. I kind of mentioned this earlier about Hofburg, and it hasn't remains to be seen about Hofburg, but he's that horse that finally broke through and then just kept on going.
Yeah, I wonder how much the wet tracks have helped him in recent starts, because I know his first race over a wet track back in May of 2017 was bad, but his recent 3 wet track performances have all been his fastest speed figure. So we'll see how much the track dries out today, but it feels like the track condition may have helped him in recent starts, and also those just came against weaker fields. Well, I feel like he hasn't faced a horse like Imperial Hint yet.
Yeah, and Long Haul Bay, who's Chad has done a nice job with, let's just be honest, he's a New York bred who didn't run an inch the other day, so that's not that's not beating Imperial Hint. The Bowling Green, I know we're going to take some footage of. I talked to Jimmy Toner earlier. I believe you wanted to show Manitoulin in the Manhattan, I believe. What did you come up with in the Bowling Green? I like High Happy in here. I think he's our best turf horse. I think stretching out. It's a race. Here it is. Here, I'll let you talk about it. It's a race lacking speed here today too, I think.
Yeah, I mean, you could watch this Manhattan a bunch of times because there are a ton of horses to follow. Yeah. So many trips in this race. Obviously, one of those was Manitoulin, who just was kind of hung out to dry for the entire trip, 4 or 5 wide around both turns, up on a pace that was pretty legitimate. You talked about High Happy. High Happy's a funny horse because he does not have one of these turns of foot like other horses. He's a grinder, and you saw around the far turn of that race, they kind of dropped him. Hello, Don Julio went on. He couldn't quite keep up, and then he kept on in the stretch. I think the 1 3/8 getting out to that distance really helps High Happy, and there's not a ton of speed in this race, so he can get that position up close to the pace and kind of make that early push. I love Sadler's Joy. I've been a fan of this horse.
Yeah.
And if you watch the Manhattan, I know the pace did kind of fall apart, but Sadler's Joy actually made the first move of that pace because they really picked up the pace starting around the half-mile pole. If you look at Trackist figures, Sadler's Joy making that wide blitz to the front by the quarter pole, ran that quarter from the half-mile pole to the quarter pole in 22-1, which is pretty remarkable that he finished second after putting in such an internal split like that. Javier Castellano and his 2 rides aboard this horse in big stakes races has just moved a tad too soon, and I feel like Javier is a guy that's going to learn from that mistake, and today he's going to make the last move aboard this horse, which is what he wants to do. He loves Saratoga.
Yeah, and he's got to be a tough horse to ride because, as you alluded to, it is the last run, and it's like you've got to wait again, and then go. And Julian Leparoux rode this horse really well. I think he probably takes a lot of heat sometimes for his rides, but that was this horse. That's what he's supposed to do, and it's like he just unleashes that quarter-mile run, and it's devastating. It's just a matter of, is he going to get there or not?
Yeah, you just kind of have to trust Sadler's Joy because he just has such an intense late kick. I mean, in both the McDermott that he won and the Sword Dancer last year, it never looked like he was going to get there, and he just hits another gear in the final 16th of a mile. So I'm hoping to see him flying at the end.
Before we get to the Jim Dandy, you mentioned Trackist, and I wanted to get your thoughts. How are you handicapping? I know you do. You mentioned time for him quite a bit.
Yeah.
One of the reasons I wanted to have guys like you on, I had Travis on last week. I'm going to try to get Nick Tamero on. Jonathan Kinchin's going to come on. You guys are doing different things. You're not just looking at the racing form and saying, oh, this horse looks fast. He might be lone speed. I like him. What are you doing to get you to the end of the day to get your picks?
Well, I use Timeform USPPs pretty heavily. I do analysis for that product, and I love to look at the pace projector, especially in sprint races and dirt sprints. I think it's really helpful to identify who the speeds are, who's faster than who. I also like to use the Timeform US speed figures because they take pace into account. So if a horse has set a really fast pace, like Promises Fulfilled is a great example. I mean, we gave him an astronomically high Timeform US speed figure for the Woody Stevens to just kind of encapsulate that he ran so well that day. I also use Jura Formulator. I use a lot of training stats. I look at Trackist. I try to look as much as I can, as much as I can.
There's never not enough information.
Yeah, there's never enough time in the day, basically.
Yeah, well, for your day especially. I think pace projectors and those kind of things, it's a good segue to the Jim Dandy because where is it coming from? I guess Flame Away's going. There's only 5 in here, folks. Certainly Vino Rosso's not going. I guess, with an aggressive ride from Jose Ortiz, but I don't think they're flying in here. Is it kind of a jockey's race, being that there's only 5?
Yeah, I mean, Flame Away, he's got to go from the rail. Right? I mean, that's his best chance of winning this race. I think the really interesting horse in this Jim Dandy is Sporting Chance, just in terms of dynamics, because he does have the speed to go with Flame Away. They just haven't used it in recent starts. They're putting the blinkers on today.
And it's not in the form, or at least not in my early form when I printed Wednesday. So take note of that, folks. Blinkers on Sporting Chance today. If there, as we talked about off the set, if there was ever a horse that needed blinkers, not that I train racehorses, this was him, right?
Yeah, he needs to run in a straight line. I still think a 1 1/8 is too far for him, but he's an interesting horse just in terms of how this race is going to be run. I like Tenfold. I think the 2 main players are Vino Rosso and Tenfold. I'm not going to say anything too clever about this, but I do strongly prefer Tenfold. I think you have to use both if you're playing a multi-race sequence, but I would lean on Tenfold just because he got in a little bit of trouble in the Belmont, was just kind of in behind the wrong horses at the wrong time. He got caught behind Restoring Hope when he was kind of falling apart around the far turn of that race and just lost momentum in a race where you couldn't afford to lose momentum, especially at that point in the race. I thought the Belmont was the day for Vino Rosso. I picked him that day. I thought that was really going to be his distance, and I was just kind of left a little disappointed by him. So I think Tenfold has more potential to take that step forward today.
Yeah, and a couple of reasons I came up with Tenfold too. First of all, I think he's more tactical than Vino Rosso, and I think that's going to be a big deal today. The second one, and I don't know if this is legitimate or not, because they are all trying to get to the Travers and run their best race in the Travers. There's no doubt about that, but Vino Rosso's got his Wood Memorial. Tenfold hasn't won anything yet. I just wondered maybe the screws are a little tighter today to try to get that graded stakes win. And you know that you're going to have a relatively weak 4 opponent. Steve threw in Re-Ride out of the Curlin yesterday to run in here because he knew it was coming up short. I just wonder if maybe that's just another club in the bag. Maybe I'm reaching there, but I thought maybe they tighten the screws a little bit more with Tenfold.
Well, kind of along those lines, Vino Rosso was put through that Triple Crown grind trying to get into the Derby, and Tenfold really wasn't put on that same schedule. He's kind of taken his time with him, Steve Asmussen has, and he's developed more slowly, so I still think we might not have seen the best of him.
Yeah, and that's a good point, too, because now we're starting the second half of the year. The Triple Crown grind is over, but as you mentioned, Vino Rosso went through it from pretty much day one, and just because you run well June in earlier doesn't mean you're going to come back and be as tough as in the second half of the season. And I think that's another good point. You know, while Tenfold was running an optional claimers and, you know, running okay in the Arkansas Derby, Vino Rosso's, you know, Sam Davis, Tampa Bay Derby, Wood Memorial to get to the Kentucky Derby. And I think that's a good point going forward. Upside is the word we hear all the time at the track, and I would think Tenfold's got a little more.
And Todd Pletcher is a trainer that gets the best out of his horses prior to the
Yes.
Derby. I mean, he's good at getting horses to the Derby and always not necessarily always having them carry that momentum forward. So Vino Rosso has to do it today.
I think it's the right time. I'm excited to hear what you think about the finale. I don't think I'm stabbing, but I came up with Frippery. I think no doubt Reverse the Decision is the horse to beat. I believe we're going to pull up some video on it. It's, as I mentioned, it's the kind of race we love at Saratoga. It might be the kind of race you can't stand at Saratoga because you probably spent 25 minutes making a line on it. Go ahead here, as well as who you think in the nightcap.
Yeah, you can see here, Reverse the Decision just unleashes this really powerful late push here. And this, I know this turf race came at Aqueduct, but this was actually a decent field. We saw a couple of horses come back to win, some decent horses. Her Chad Brown Stablemate, who's second here, is actually okay. I think Reverse the Decision is probably going to be a graded stakes horse eventually. She is really good. I think she's run exceptionally well in all of her races, especially that Boiling Springs last time where she broke from the far outside post at Monmouth, went wide around both turns. You just can't do that at that track, and she still ran well to be second there. The only way she loses this race is if she gets a bad trip, which is certainly a possibility in a 12-horse field. I'm leaning on her heavily in the late pick 4, but I do think you want to use some backups.
Guys, let's pull up. David did send his pick 4 up. I think it was a $25 play. If we can pull that up, the folks, here it is here. So yeah, so you're spreading a little bit though.
Yeah, you know, my main goal was in the 9th race to the Bowling Green to play against Money Multiplier. Now he's out, so that takes a bit of the value out of that race. In the finale, I mean, typically I play like an ABC type wager where I, you know, take a horse like Reverse the Decision and really push her through a lot of my money through her, and then use others as backups. The other backups that I want to use in this finale are obviously Ferdinanda. She's stakes placed. She's just rock solid. If she shows up, she's going to be right there at the end. Frippery, I'm going to use her as well. I think she's interesting, a speed horse from the inside. I thought she moved a little too soon, but ran well in the Christiana last time. And the horse that really interests me in this race is the 10 Cloak of Secrecy. She's going to be a price in here. She's faced some decent horses at Churchill Downs. She's proven that she handles the distance, because I do think you want to note this race is 1 1/8 miles, so it's a bit of a test of stamina. I like this horse's pedigree. She's just this big, robust filly that seems to really just be hitting her stride finally. So I think she's going to, you know, give a good account of herself today. Whether she can beat horses like Ferdinanda and Reverse the Decision, I don't know, but she could outrun her odds.
And stepping up facing winners, never easy. I would also think we're going to have a turf course with, I believe you told me it was rated good, but it's going to have some give to it. It's going to be a pretty demanding turf course out there today after all the rains as well.
Yeah, and that's a real unknown because a lot of these fillies are lightly raced and they just haven't run over it. So that's you just kind of have to wait and see.
Before we wrap it up here, I want to get your thoughts. Hofburg yesterday in the Curlin, love him, hate him, no use for him. What did you think? I thought if nothing else, he did what he had to do the right way.
Yeah, I was just going to say the same thing. You know, nobody closed yesterday in any race, and to his credit, I know he didn't come from that far back. He was about 2 lengths off the pace sitting in last, but he made that sustained move past horses. Was he beating anything? No. But he looked good doing it, you know. It was no surprise that he got the distance. I mean, he's bred to run all day, and he obviously ran well in the Belmont Stakes. It just seemed like the perfect prep for the Travers, and, you know, I'm not going to go out on a limb and say I'm picking him in the Travers, even though he's a horse that I do like, and I'm a fan of him. But he just seems to be progressing well, and he's one of those 3-year-olds, kind of like a Tenfold, who probably can take that next step forward.
And I'm not, I've never been in love with Hofburg, but he's one of the ones. I mean, 4 weeks from today, he's one of the ones, as I said, we'll see what happens later today here in the Jim Dandy. Certainly tomorrow in the Haskell. You know, Chad's got good magic coming back, and I said, you know, well, you're the line maker. I said, right now, if the Travers was run today, he's probably the favorite, right?
Yeah, I mean, Good Magic has run so well through, you know, especially in the Derby and the Preakness, that, I mean, he could put forth, you know, quite a performance tomorrow and just kind of basically shut the door on everybody else. That's a possibility, because right now he is the undisputed leader with Justify Out.
With Justify Out, yeah, without a doubt. Well, we'll know a lot more at about 6:30, 7 o'clock tomorrow. Jim Dandy today, Curlin, of course, yesterday with Hofburg. Jim Dandy today, Haskell tomorrow. David, I really appreciate you stopping by.
Yeah, this is great.
Saturdays at the Spa. It's going to wrap it up, too, for Saturdays at the Spa. We've got a monster 4-stake graded stakes here at Saratoga, a real monster card. Tomorrow is tremendous as well. I want to thank Jimmy Toner, Mike Luzzy stopping by, pdjf.org. Check that out. Check out Jockeys Karaoke over at Vapor, and then David Aragona as well, DRF analyst and NYRA morning line maker as well. So I appreciate all three guests. And that's going to wrap it up for Saturdays at the Spa. Brian Natta with you. I'm actually going to be back here in about 90 minutes if you can stand me for the rest of the day. We've got the bankroll, so check that out. We've got a full card of the bankroll for the OTB customers, and then tomorrow back with the Handicappers Report. So I appreciate it, and best of luck on what looks like a pretty beautiful day at Saratoga.
You're watching OTB TV, a service of Capital Off Track Betting.